The Club Championship Show on OTB in partnership with AIB. Proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. Hashtag the toughest.
Welcome along to our first edition of the Club Championship Show for 2023. Ahead of a huge weekend, it's all brought to you with thanks to AIB. Places in 3 All-Ireland Club football finals are on the line this weekend as the Championship returns after the Christmas break. Last year's beaten finalists Kilmacud Crokes go up against Kerry's first-time Munster winners Kerins O'Rahilly's in the semi-finals at Croke Park. The other semi-final, a very interesting one indeed, with teams coming out of their province in Moycullen of Galway and Derry's Glen. They are the senior semi-finals at Croke Park this coming Sunday. We'll be speaking to Dublin and Kilmacud Crokes Andrew McGowan a little bit later, and long-serving Glen defender Michael Warnock as well. And Maurice Brosnan of the Irish Examiner will be along to look forward to Saturday's semi-finals in the intermediate and junior football championships. Delighted to say Ash O'Reilly is with us as well. Ash, how are you getting on?
Good now, Will. Happy New Year. We're back in action.
We are. Many happy returns. It comes back with a lot of excitement. Particularly, I think we're all looking forward to the double-header at Croke Park this coming Sunday.
Yes, I'm going to head into that. Really looking forward to it. 2 cracking semi-finals, and I think they're both tough ones to call. Maybe when you talk about Kilmacud and Kerins O'Rahilly, a lot of people would say Kilmacud should have the edge there, but I think with the experience and the leaders that's in that Kerins O'Rahilly team as well, you know, it should be a cracking game. And of course then Moycullen and Glen, really looking forward to that. I'm going to head along as well to Castletown and Fossa on Saturday, so it'll be interesting to see David Clifford in action for his club. I've never did that before, so yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah,
it's amazing the excitement he can drum up for a junior football championship semi-final. I think everyone wants to see David Clifford in action. We're delighted to say that we also have got Michael Warnock, veteran defender with Glen, with us as well. Michael, how are you getting on?
Not too bad. All's good.
I'd imagine, look, a lovely Christmas, I would say, around the parish after knocking out the reigning champions Kilmacud in the Ulster final and having gone back-to-back in your county over the last couple of years as well.
It's been a good couple of years in Glen now, thankfully, but for many a year it wasn't as good as this now. But it was a nice Christmas. Generally, when we were training over Christmas, we were training for relegation battles, so to be training for an All-Ireland Club semi-final, it's a nice position to be in.
Yeah, you made your championship debut with your club back in 2010. So what's different about now compared to, say, a decade ago?
I suppose when we first came in, we were fighting to stay at senior level. Probably most years, a lot of hopes was pinned on a small number of groups coming through the underage structure at the time that we would come and hopefully try and push on for a first senior title. But when we came in, it was tough. You were getting beat by some teams maybe 20-30 points. And thankfully we've turned the table on that after years and years of hard work. But now to be fighting at a provincial level and even on a national level now, it's unbelievable for the club, to be honest.
If I can take you back to that breakthrough provincial success then in the game against Kilmacud, how important was the way that you started that game? I mean, you got a flying start.
Well, I think we were extremely disappointed after, in particular, last year's game against them. We felt that we didn't go for it. We maybe played inside ourselves slightly, and the occasion maybe slightly got to us. But we said if we were going to lose this year, we were going to go down fighting, and we were going to play in the front foot. And that start was massive for us. 5 points up. We then conceded a bad goal, which really allowed them to come back into it. But it gave us great confidence that that we could get on top of them and get on top of their kick out, and it gave us a great platform for going forward in the game.
That shift in mentality then compared to last year, where maybe you're a little bit edgy going into it, and therefore, as you say, you probably played a bit within yourselves. Is that down to Malachy O'Rourke? Is that down to the team collectively? What was the difference this year?
I think you realised last year that for us the experience of it was massive. We had heard of Crossmaglen, Scottstown, Kilmacud, all massive names within Ulster, and then obviously Slaughtneil, who are neighbours as well. So to begin into your first Ulster semi-final against the reigning Ulster champions, and they were talking about winning All Irons as such, and All Irons for us was so far down the beaten track. But I think probably that experience of playing against them last year and knowing that we felt we didn't perform, they maybe felt the same, or maybe felt they did perform, but for us we felt we didn't perform, and we thought that if we could bring our best performance, that we'd be fairly close in getting over the line.
And Michael, to beat Slaughtneil, I suppose you have to be the best team in Derry, and then obviously then to go on and win Ulster, you probably have it in the back of your mind always, you have to beat Kilmacud. Was that something at the start of the year that you felt, we want to be back there, we want another shot at them?
It probably was, actually, to be honest. But when you're in a county with Slaughtneil, to be focusing in Kilmacud would be quite ignorant of us, to be honest, considering the achievement that a lot of those players in Slaughtneil have had over the last number of years. So like our big target, obviously, the chat in the county was that last year we caught Slaughtneil on the hop, and I suppose coming into this year was they felt that the chat in the county was anyway that they felt that they were getting back to their best as such. Thankfully for us, we managed to get past them in that case, but we couldn't focus too much on Kilmacud. But once we did one day, the aim was to get another crack at them, because I suppose a number of players would have come out of last year's game with a few regrets, which is probably one of the hardest things after defeat.
And what was the feeling like when you had that win, that Ulster win? So obviously you have the celebrations and you say, okay, we enjoy this, but do you also say to yourself, we can go on and win this All-Ireland? Or is it very much, do you feel bonus territory, or is it, we have a chance here?
I wouldn't use the term bonus territory as such. Probably a lot of the players within the group are very, very driven, and have high expectations, So the celebrations after winning Ulster were like any first club team winning their first provincial championship. It was a bit pandemonium for a couple of days in the town, but as players, it's very difficult to carry that on for a period of time. Naturally, I think you look forward to what's coming down the track next, and you turn your attention quite quickly to that as such, because as success goes very quickly, and it'll be all forgotten about on Sunday as such. Ulster, whenever we come up against Moycullen.
Did you actually get to enjoy the Christmas a whole lot, or was the focus very much on knowing that coming to the second weekend in January we've got a big game?
I suppose it's what do you determine as enjoyment. For us, training over Christmas was, for an Ulster club, an All-Ireland club semi-final, that for us is enjoyment. There's many a year you can get to enjoy a Christmas, or take a beer or eat whatever you want, but for us, being able to train on Christmas Eve, and that, there was a great buzz there for us, and that we're out training for something that's much bigger than ourselves. So for us, it was a very enjoyable Christmas.
Croke Park this weekend against Moycullen, though. What have you made of them so far, or how much work have you done on Moycullen so far?
Look, I think videos through most counties through COVID and that set up their own TV station, that so you can get quite a bit done on teams, and especially if you're coming out of the Galway Championship. Everybody's renowned of knowing Cora Finn and the achievements they had. So the Galway Championship's obviously very, very, very competitive in that sense, and generally the Galway champions, when they come out of Galway, are always hot favourites for the Connacht Championship. So it's going to be a massive, massive task for us. They have a lot of quality, 6-7 guys in the Galway panel as well. So, but look, that's you're not going to get an easy game at this stage of the championship. So everybody's going to be trying to bring their best performance, and whoever manages to do that will probably win the game.
Yeah, but I think that your club is going to take huge confidence in what you've just achieved. Like, as you mentioned, it was all new last year. While now you've got a provincial title behind you, you've had a few weeks to maybe reflect on that and enjoy it. And you can also take confidence from that performance against Kilmacud, who've been so good both provincially and in the All-Ireland series over the last couple of years as well.
Well, if we think back to the Kilmacud game, probably the first half was a game in nearly two halves. We dominated the first 15 minutes, and then probably Kilmacud dominated the next 15 as soon as they get the goal. In that sense, we'd be disappointed with the last 15 minutes of the first half. We probably felt we could have kicked on in that sense. The second half was nearly a game of cat and mouse between both teams. Both teams didn't want to make a mistake or lose possession, because obviously of what happened last year, it was one mistake killed the game. But look, we've beat the All-Ireland champions. There's great confidence in that, but we know that there was a kick of the ball between them and Kilmacud last year, and they played the Connacht champion, or the Munster champion, sorry, and it went extra time last year. So there's no easy game when you get to this stage, and we're just focusing on Moycullen at the moment.
We had Malachy O'Rourke on OTB AM after the Ulster final, and he was talking about how much he's enjoyed being involved with your club, and we were asking about how inter-county compares to club, and he said it's been fantastic because you're such a driven group of players. But what has Malachy O'Rourke brought to the club since he's come in?
A lot of experience, obviously, would be probably the number one thing. He's brought Ryan Porter with him as well, who's a phenomenal trainer. in that sense. But he's brought a lot of professionalism to it, and in that sense, and a lot of calmness as well. As a driven group, you naturally maybe we're a wee bit fiery during games and things like that. And his calmness along the sideline, that's nearly become reflective of ourselves in the pitch now. So, but I just think in general, there's experience and knowledge of the game and that. We're absolutely loving playing for him. I think there's a few people who've joked that he can stay as long as he wants. And we would certainly feel that as a group. We've never enjoyed our football as much since we started playing under Malgate.
Yeah, it's been brilliant to see, I suppose, the rise, like back-to-back championships and now an Ulster title as well. I suppose as well within the team, it's a blend of youth and experience.
Yeah, I suppose there's a large group of that crop of players that played in those 4 Ulster minor teams. But then there's also a few of the younger guys that maybe didn't experience that, the likes of Connacht McGowan and Ewan Mulholland in there as well. And then we've a good blend of youth on our bench as well. Tiernan Higgins, Jody McDermott, Adam McGonigal, really, really strong underage players that we hope will become, very strong senior players for us quite quickly. So we're very fortunate. We've got that there. We've had a lot of people, in fairness, in this group that got relegated with Glen whenever we first started playing senior. Probably have experienced one of the lowest days in our club's history to a few weeks back experiencing the biggest day in the club's history. So, you've got those experiences. You've got the experience of knowing that this doesn't happen every year. I think that stands to us now.
Does that make you appreciate this coming weekend too? Because you've been through the tough times, now you get to enjoy, all your club people being able to go to Croke Park this coming Sunday, the potential for going back to Croke Park to play in an All-Ireland final as well. I presume because of the tough times, that makes you appreciate this even more.
I look at those, it's just probably, you didn't really notice how much it meant to people in the club until, the cups were going about a few houses over Christmas and stuff like that, and you called in and seen the joy that it gave to maybe people that couldn't get to the game or couldn't enjoy the celebrations that night with us in the club, but looking through the tough times, absolutely. But there's people for years and years that soldiered with the club that didn't get to experience this at all and played, and there'd be a huge respect for those players, coaches that were involved at that time, because I know for myself the first couple of years I found playing senior football very, very difficult, because it was difficult to see light at the end of the tunnel in terms of success. Slatney and Balder, they were dominating at that stage, and we were getting beat by 20-30 points, as I've mentioned. So to be sitting in an All-Ireland club semi-final, it's nice, and that's sort of, I suppose that's why I reflected on saying Christmas and how you define enjoyment for us playing over Christmas. There's no greater buzz.
Well, look, Michael, the best of luck at the weekend. Thanks a million for joining us on the Club Championship Show.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
There you go, Ash. Glen, getting ready now for that All-Ireland semi-final. Like, it's a new experience for them. It's a new experience for these Moycullen players. I don't know how much of a factor that's going to be at the weekend.
Yeah, you see, even watching them in that Ulster final, as much as it is a new experience, when you see them in action against Kilmacud, I just feel that it feels like now's their time. And I know I asked the question about, is it bonus territory? I knew rightly it's probably not bonus territory, but I wanted to see the feeling of winning that Ulster, and can you, I suppose, enjoy that while also looking ahead, while not getting too carried away. And obviously when you hear them talking about, Michael saying about, the Christmas, like what's enjoyment for them, it's training. It's being in this, All-Ireland semi-final. It's going to Croke Park, and, they don't feel like they're missing out on anything, going out enjoying the Christmas, because they are enjoying it their way. So I think, it's going to be really interesting. But for both teams, I think they've got experienced players there that have played in Croke Park. So a massive day for their clubs. But I don't think it'll be too much of a factor that it is Croke Park or that it's a new experience. I think they'll be well up for the challenge at this stage.
No, I think you got to cash in while you're doing well, and that's similar with Moycullen's run that they're having currently, and we'll get your team in that semi-final, and even in the other semi-final. You're thinking that Kerins O'Rahilly's probably didn't think they were going to have the chance to progress into the Munster Championship. They won the Munster Championship, and now they've got to make the most of an opportunity coming through an All-Ireland semi-final. But I was incredibly impressed by Glen against Kilmacud. I know you were watching that Ulster final. I thought they were really good, and again, it's one of those where you're looking at two of the really genuine contenders to win the All-Ireland Championship in that final.
Yeah, and I think it was the tactics as well. They got it so right. Their energy about them was just like Kilcoo couldn't live with it. You know, they pressed up in the kickouts and Kilcoo were rattled, and they'd say that themselves. You know, they couldn't play the game they wanted to play. And Malachy O'Rourke, like, I'd love to see him in a dressing room. I'd love to. Is he always that calm? You know, what is this brilliance of Malachy O'Rourke? Because really, anything that he seems to touch or get involved with, it works. And yeah, it's been a formidable rise for them. And I think on Sunday, you know, it could be a great day for them in Croke Park. I think Moycullen are a great team, but I would see at this stage it might be Glen that'll come out just for getting over Kilcoo, the momentum of all of that, and so far how they've been playing, the type of football they've been playing, they'll be hard to stop, but definitely going to be a great game.
Yeah, we'll be talking about Kilmacud Crokes against Kerins O'Rahilly's with Andrew McGowan, the wing back for Kilmacud Crokes, in a few minutes' time. But it's time for us to have a look at the All-Ireland Intermediate Football semi-finals and the Junior Football semi-finals, which are on this Saturday. The fixtures, you've got Federate of Wexford up against Rathmore of Kerry at Porky Rin at 2 o'clock on Saturday, and then Dunmore McHale's of Galway up against Galbally Pierce's of Tyrone at St. Loman's in Mullingar. That's at 2 p.m. Kerry have got representation across all of these competitions this weekend. All three of the provincial champions in Munster coming from Kerry this season. And then we've got the Junior Football Championship, as Ash mentioned. She's looking to go to Castletown of Meath against Fossa of Kerry at O'Moore Park. That's a 2 p.m. start. And at the same time at the Hyde, we've got Clifton of Galway against Stewartstown Harps of Tyrone. So they're the fixtures this coming Saturday. Delighted to say the Irish Examiner's Maurice Brosnan is with us. Maurice, how are you getting on?
Great, well done yourself.
Now, usually I wouldn't be starting this preview talking about the Junior Football Championship semi-finals, but such is the hype around the Cliffords, and David Clifford in particular. Like, we've seen, you know, Munster Championship games selling out as a result of people going to watch David Clifford. And there's something quite romantic when we look at the club championships of the best player in the country playing for his junior club in an All-Ireland semi-final.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Will. This weekend is my kingdom come, kind of. If you know, I've covered this Rathmore and Fossa team since the very start of this year. I've obviously got kind of close ties to Kerry. I'm actually living in Galway and playing football in Galway, speaking to you now from Clifton. So this weekend is my Armageddon. I cannot wait for it. And it is kind of, you know, not to labour this point, and I know people are kind of sick of talking about it, but it is kind of the beauty of this time of the year is a weekend like this, from my perspective. Like you mentioned, the Clifford narrative there. I was driving in the car last night. I heard Ray Hogan, the Clifton manager, and he was, you know, talking openly and very honestly about Stewartstown and about how happy he is to see an inter-county referee in this game because of maybe their tactics about at half-time getting around referee and the physio. Like, this is stuff, you don't hear that kind of stuff in the inter-county game. I thought it was great to hear such kind of honesty. As you mentioned, what you want to call it, the carnival that's following Clifford everywhere he goes. To the extent where I was actually at the Fossa Kilmurray, the Munster final, there was more people that day than there was the day before for the senior final, the Kerins O'Rahilly's game. Like, he's just bringing a band all around with him. I actually remember I was sitting in the stand, Mallow, freezing to my bone that day, and there was a big massive crowd down the right side of the field for the first half, and then they all go up the left-handed side of the field for the second half. They were just watching Clifford. You know, they're just there to watch David Clifford. The crazy thing, and something I kind of have maintained definitely for the last 2 years, is that you know, David Clifford is the best footballer in the country, and certainly in Kerry. The second best footballer in Kerry happens to play fast as well in Paddy Clifford. I'd be kind of adamant about that. I actually wrote that recently and got a bit of blowback, but I just think it's unquestionable that he makes this team tick. And so on top of watching David Clifford that day, as good as he's been this year, and don't get me wrong, like I'm by no means am I downplaying his achievements, but you go back to the county final, actually, you know, you go back to that Lestroy game. They were gone if it wasn't for Paddy Clifford. Like, I know the goal he scored at the end pulled it to extra time, but even throughout that game, he was wearing 6, but he's playing midfield. I think he had 24 possessions. He scored 1-2, another 2 assists. He was involved in 5. So from a game perspective, trying to deal with both of them must be a fairly formidable thing. But from our perspective, just to be able to watch the carnival that comes with it and the atmosphere with it, I heard Ashley saying she's going to do it as well. That, like, all that feeds into it.
Brilliant, yeah, Maurice. I'm looking forward to going at the weekend. And like for Castletown, when they're looking at this game now, what do? Do they say we take the Cliffords out of the game, then we stop Fossa? What way are they looking at this game?
It's funny, you look at junior football. I don't think that's a realistic ask, to be honest, Ashley. Like, I just don't think David Clifford is probably going to score 8 or 9 points. That's going to happen. It's, to my mind, it's kind of what happens around that. I do think you really need to Keanan Price has scored a lot for Castletown the last couple of years. I think he scored 3 points last timeout. But I nearly just sent him the other way and try and get after Paddy, like really drill down on that, try and take him out. I remember listening to Lee Keegan talk in he was previewing the All-Ireland final, and he gave his analysis for the Kerry Mayo game, and he said the player they identified for that Kerry team, I'm talking about like an inter-county team here, was Paddy Clifford. That everything went through him. He makes the team tick. That's why he was actually detailed to follow him. He did a good job on him. So that's kind of your ask. And then it's just what happens around him, I think, is the big thing. You've got the 2 O'Sheas for Fossa, who really came to the fore. Owen Talbot was sent off that day against Kilmurray. They really came to the fore after that. It's maybe trying to take them out, like kind of accept that David Clifford is going to have a field day. That is just your baseline. That's inevitable, really. It's what happens around him. And that's it's kind of the interesting thing about this game. You go back, I think they, like in a very low scoring Leinster final, they had 5 different scores. I think they had 9 in the county final, 7 in their semi-final. So that spread of scores, it's the contrast, which again, I know I'm labouring a point here, but again, it's what feeds into why these games are so attractive, is that, you in some ways you kind of are talking about a team trying to take down a juggernaut in David Clifford. The interesting to watch this weekend for anybody who has an eye on this game is that Eamon Fitzmaurice is involved with Fossa, and they are, in a lot of other counties, like I watched a lot of club football this year, they probably are a good intermediate team in reality, like that's their level, but just given the weeds of the Kerry Championship system, they find themselves in the junior championship. But the one thing I would say is that they have kind of fundamental trademarks of nearly a senior team. Like it was gas to watch against Kilmurray, and this 30-man press that we were all eyes wide open watching when Kerry did it to Dublin, when Fitzmaurice did it to Cluxton and broke them, and now suddenly you see a junior team deploying it in Mallow in the freezing cold. Like those kind of tenets are still there within Fossa. So stuff like that I think will be interesting. That's what they do in that position. They're weak enough on their own kick out. They were absolutely destroyed in the Kerry County final, but that's definitely something that you can get after them. That's weakness. So to my mind, it's not about, there's no weakness. You can't pick a flaw in David Clifford. It's about everything around that you need to kind of drill down on.
The Castellan have to take something as well, Maurice, in the fact you said a very low scoring Leinster final. They kept Adamstown to just 6 points in that game. I know it's maybe a different task coming up against some of the star players that Fossa have, but if they're going to win this, they need to be very good collectively, defensively, if they're going to stop them.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's probably like I don't think it's about a one-on-one matchup with someone like Clifford. Like as you mentioned there, it's a collective thing. Like it's trying to, in a lot of ways, it's damaged imitation. Sometimes I call it like bend don't break defense. Like if Clifford wants to shoot from inside 45, which he's well capable of, there's probably no point in trying to get somebody on his boot and push him out the other way. It's maybe just accept that, okay, we didn't concede a goal there. Like at times you accept your losses or maybe minimize your losses as much as you can, and that. So I don't think people talk about how the best way to mark David Clifford. I've seen articles written about it. Like where's your body of work, and that's in the inter-county game. So can you imagine how difficult that is in the junior game? So I think it's everything that happens. This you kind of take that in isolation. You basically, I would actually say even explicitly outline, right, he is going to score 10 points. Don't let that affect you mentally. Don't even pay much heed to it, because that's kind of inevitable, and everything around that is what we'd focus on. Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to get after the kickers? Don't let Matt Rennie, who's an incredibly hard working half forward, but who's well able to take a score as well, don't let him do damage. That's the kind of stuff that maybe even Paddy Clifford, Paddy Clifford is playing out the field. Like I've seen him diving on people's boot in the last line of defence for this Fossa team. He wears 6, but he does play kind of in the middle of the field. And which means a lot of times teams don't actually detail somebody to mark them, and you have to, especially in junior football, you have to detail somebody to mark them, because otherwise you'll have a field day.
The other semi-final which you mentioned, look, you can give us the inside track in this. If you're around the Clifton area, then you know how they're feeling ahead of this game against Stewartstown Harp. So what's your feeling about this second semi-final, Maurice?
It's a remarkable story, really. Well, like Clifton they're kind of, for a long time, I don't know if anybody knows the geography of Galway, but for the West Galway, if you look at the two Galway clubs this weekend, for example, right, Dunmore McKay's won the first county title ever in Galway football before the J was even founded. Like I'm talking about Michael Cusack was doing his tour around the country. He goes to Loughrea, and there's a man in the hall that day, Michael Finnegan. He sets up Dunmore McKay. So they are steeped in the history of Galway football. I think they have 15 county titles. They actually never won a county title, which I think was, I know it was something that they kind of spoke about openly before that game, as we could make our own bit of history in this proud traditional club. And then in the west of Galway, I'm talking about 1900s there when Dunmore won the first one. In the west of Galway, 1996 is the first time a West Galway club win a senior title. That's on Caharua. The Westies end up coming backboning the All-Ireland team. Sean O'Dwyer and Kevin Walsh. those difficulties still exist. If anything, they're even worse. Clifton used to be pretty strong. Back in the 80s and 70s, there was a train line from Clifton to Ashton Rise. It was easier to get the games. Now suddenly they don't have any more. So like people often ask me, what's the buzz around Clifton this week? And you don't really bump into the players because not many of them are here. Like Clifton train in Oughterard. I don't know if you know the geography of Galway, but Oughterard is like 45 minutes in towards the city. They have lights there, they train there. That's just to help facilitate lads who are coming from, because so many players aren't based in Clifton. They have a lot of lads based in Dublin as well. So for them to get to this stage, to pull it all together, and that kind of that buy-in. So oftentimes during COVID, I actually saw this a lot. Where clubs, really rural clubs, had really strong runs because they finally had everybody home. Like they had access to the players. So that's from the Clifton perspective. And again, the romance from the Stewartstown is going back to the, like, I don't know about you, but I just love reading 2004. That's what it's all about. 2004, they had that incredible run. They're actually beaten by a Fingu team, that Kerry. That again, talking about Star Juniors, that was the name for tomorrow. Sam Paul Galvin team that bet them. That 2005, I think it was. It was the first year of the Junior Intermediate All Ireland, and Croke Park actually wasn't available, so they ended up playing in Portlaoise. But you hear people like Fergal Owen talk about his happiest day, one of his happiest days ever in football. And this is a man who delivered the shock of all shocks. What was it, 2 years ago with Tyrone? One of his happiest days ever was in Casement Park when they won the Ulster title that year. Remarkably, there's still players from that team playing. Gareth Devlin. Another thing actually that Clifton have, there's been a bit of talk about is the fact that Gareth Devlin was playing that 2014. I think that there's a lot to be said for that, like just the experience of a run like that and how that stands to a team. So you've got a blend of young versus old. But Gareth Devlin was sent off over in Scotland. Clifton actually had some management at that game over in Scotland in the quarterfinal. That was overturned within a week. And again, this is openly, this is why I kind of love this thing. Clifton have openly, their management have openly kind of said they're very surprised to see how quickly that was overturned. And I mean, how was it overturned? He's obviously, he's a talisman for so both Galway clubs are definitely up against it this weekend. But you have enough strands there, Will, that would make sure that you keep an eye out on the scoreline. Yeah,
the two intermediate semi-finals, Dunmore McHale's, you already mentioned, from Galway, that remarkable tradition, and here they are now in an intermediate semi-final up against Tyrone's Galbally Pierces. The one thing I noticed about Dunmore McHale's in the Connacht final, a very unusual spread of scores. It had 9 different scores, but 4 different free takers on the day as well, which is a very unique weapon to have. So many guys who can actually kick a dead ball.
Yeah, and it's kind of they've been up and down like in a lot of games. Some of the impressive passage, if you want to call it like a 15-20 minute passage, was when they played Ballyhonus, and in the second half came out and just, I don't know what was said at half time, but whatever was said, they just turned around totally in the second half. The interesting for me about this, I don't know why this game is on in but all the greatest respect in the world, I don't know why this game is on in St. Norman's. It just, I was talking to Tony from Dunmore. They've paid the visit there, and the facility, like the ground looks good, and they've no concern about the playing pitch, but everything around that, I think a competition like this probably deserves. I thought Cusack Park maybe would have been a lot much better for this game, but not to get down that tangent. The big thing for me though, Will, is that you look at compare, this time of the year particularly, and you mentioned that Connacht final. That was that 5 weeks ago? It was the first weekend of December, I think. I'm pretty sure it was the first weekend of December. And versus just a 3-week break on the other side, and I think that's massive. Like I really do think that's huge when you're trying to navigate this time of year and keep lads taking over, and they give a break. I think Dunmore might take a week off totally and then come back, gone harder for 3 weeks, and then you kind of taper for a week, trying to navigate that. Versus, I think 3 weeks is perfect. That's the perfect gap. Keep lads taking over. It's kind of it doesn't seem like that long away. There's not maybe polls around the festivities and all that kind of thing. So I think the biggest challenge for Dunmore going to this game was managing that gap, and we won't find out until this weekend if they did it successfully. Yeah,
it is difficult, especially when everyone's off work over the festive period as well, and like form just naturally drops off when you haven't been able to have a competitive game. I was looking at Rathmore, and the one thing that really stood out to me in this one is they've got Chrissy Spears, a guy from Derry, who scored 12 points for them in their Munster Club football final. So we talk about imports, and I'm sure we're going to have a chat about Shane Walsh, and we're talking about Kilmacud in a bit, but to be able to bring a player in from Derry who can kick you 12 points in the provincial final is a big get for the club.
Even more so, Will, he did that 2 days after he got married. He got married 2 days before that game. and I did that. So remarkably, he got married 2 days before that game. Paul Murphy actually missed it because he was on his honeymoon. This a conversation has been had, and I'm kind of sick to death of it. But it does demonstrate the intricacies of the Kerry County Championship. When would a player be willing to take those kind of breaks or stuff if they weren't fairly guaranteed to win a Munster, like 15 to 16 Munster titles? That's just the reality of the situation. But yeah, that's like Rathmore, a really interesting club for anybody who's maybe watched Kerry this year and not seen Shane Ryan, the goalkeeper Shane Ryan, is playing corner forward for Rathmore. There's been a bit of talk around Kerry recently that he's actually carrying a shoulder injury. I saw Jack O'Connor was asked about it during the week and said he doesn't know if he's going to need surgery or not. So if he's playing, if the club's campaign is basically delaying him rehabbing his shoulder, which feeds into the idea of players being constantly on the go, that like if you were Shane Ryan and you're sitting down and he does need surgery, we don't know if he does or not, but when is your window to actually get that small break to rehab? You're basically on the go from last January. You're into a club campaign. He played in goals for East Kerry in the Kerry County Championship, but he plays out the field for his club, plays corner forward. Mark Ryan is captain for the Strathmore team as well. Paul Murphy missed it. He'll be back too. As you mentioned, Chrissy Spears is he's just shooting the lights out lately. He's been absolutely electric. So they've got a fine spread. They're an unbelievably strong team. Like Legion probably would have been the favourites in the Intermediate Championship this year, but Legion were actually turned over by Gaeltacht, who narrowly turned over Rathmore in the final. That's Brian Begley's on Gaeltacht. So that's just it demonstrates the unbelievably competitive nature of the championship. That was the most competitive game they've had since. But with the greatest respect in the world, the provincial committee didn't come close, and they would have to be. You'll have to earmark them as favourites again purely because of the nature. Like you've got 8 senior clubs. You've got the 9th strongest team in Kerry with an All Ireland winner missing in their most fun is now going to back into that team. So if anything, they're only going to get stronger.
And it's impressive for Kerry as a county to have 3 clubs involved in the intermediate. You have Rathmore, Fossa in the junior, and then Kerins O'Rahilly in the senior. So I suppose it does show the strength that they have within the club championship.
It does, yeah. It's kind of interesting when you go back to the Ireland final, actually, Aisling, that you mentioned the Kerry strength there, and it just so happens that Galway also have Moycullen, Dunmore and Clifton. I think it also demonstrates, like, you look at Clifton here, for example, like Clifton could go to Ballynahinch. They're the 5 or 6 different schools that they visit with the cup, so they all still, people are talking about the promotional damage of the split season. Actually, if anything, Galway getting to that final has done wonders, because you've suddenly got the buzz of that has just copied into all 3 of these clubs. Same thing is equally true for Kerry. Now, somebody will inevitably fire back about the nature of the Kerry Championship, which is a fair point, but I just would I'm sick to death to kind of talk about it in one sense, and also Kerry do that because it's clearly working. Like that's working to their benefit. There's other champions who are, there's clubs hanging on. Even this is a big debate in Galway actually with the hurling championship. There's clubs who, like, do you want to be senior just to maintain the status of being senior? If you know what I mean. Like, how much is your viable chances of success? Whereas you have got absolutely cutthroat championships. So it's great for them, entertainment. Everybody feels they have a chance of success within it. So personally, I actually think that structure is better than the alternative, which is in some cases just below the championships. Teams clinging on at the bottom rung, never really having a realistic chance of succeeding within that. But yeah, like from both counties' perspective, the buzz at the minute must be absolutely electric.
Maurice, great stuff as always. Thanks a million for joining us.
Thanks, Will.
So they're the games this Saturday in both the junior and intermediate football championships. We're going to focus now on the other game in the senior championship this coming Sunday. It's the opening game of the double header, Aisling, where we've got Kerins O'Rahilly's of Kerry up against Kilmacud Crokes of Dublin. You've been at Crokes last couple of games, and I've been very impressed with the way that they put Portarlington and the Downs away. I think 2 really, really efficient performances, and even taking into account no Paul Mannion at the moment. Shane Walsh came off during that Portarlington game as well, and yet Kilmacud Crokes control both of them.
Yeah, this is it. They have strength and depth within the squad, Will, and I suppose that's what you need if you want to go on and win the All-Ireland. You see the subs that are coming off the bench are just as good. They could be starting. They really are a really, really strong team. Maybe going into this game, would they maybe be looking at, have they been overly tested? That's something I'm sure a lot of people are probably asking of them. I'm sure we'll get into it as well. But yeah, they've been so impressive in their games. And I think against the Downs in particular, and they strolled through that. It was 6 points in the end, but I think it was 11 points at halftime, if I remember correctly. And they were very much in control. And it's not about just Shane Walsh. It's very much not. I know he comes away with like 9 points in a game, but it's it's the players around him, and they also know how to play with him after such a short period of time, which is quite impressive as well. They know his strengths, and they know to let him on the ball, and also to give space when needed. And yeah, they were very, very impressive to watch. And yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting at the weekend, but they're coming up against a good Kerins O'Rahilly team, that's for sure. Yeah,
for sure. You think of it as well, we'll bring in Andrew McGowan in a moment, but just when you've got former inter-county players as well, Ash, who are sprinkled across that Kilmacud Crokes team, Craig Diaz, who's had a big year, Rory O'Carroll, who's kind of at the middle of their defence, anchoring everything, Shane Shane, I'm thinking Shane Walsh, of course Shane Walsh, current player, Shane Horn, I'm thinking of the former Offaly player who's also there in the half forward line. To have those players who've got that experience of playing intercounty, the standards of playing intercounty, but are 100% focused on their club, has to be a big help to any team.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, Will. They are 100% focused on Kilmacud, and you do feel that, the few times that I spoke to some of the players, you feel that's what it's about. Winning this All-Ireland club title means a lot to them. And, obviously with last year, what happened against Kilmacud, I don't know if you saw the replay of it at Christmas, it was on TG Carr, and just when you actually watch that game back, my God, they must have walked off the pitch like just wondering what just happened. What just happened, what a game, so entertaining. But I'm sure it was a long time before they really got over the hurt of that. So, they will be gunning to go the whole way this year to, get over, I suppose, the fears of all of last year and just be able to put it to bed if they ever will be able to. But look, I'm sure winning an All-Ireland would be amazing for them. But they have a big task. They have a semi-final to go first, and they're a formidable team, that's for sure.
Yeah, Kilmacud defender Andrew McGowan is with us now. Andrew, to pick up that point that Ashley just made, she said she enjoyed watching back Kilmacud against yourselves as a perfect neutral. Did you sit down and re-watch the final at the Christmas period, or do you leave that back in February?
Well, no, I watched it back in February. I think I stored it away and haven't looked at it since.
I think that's more than fair enough. Has it been a bit of a motivating factor though this year, like having come so close last season to have been in that epic final, to have been so close to getting your hands on the cup, to now try and go back? You've already retained your Leinster title, but to try and get back to the final once again.
Well, yeah, because last year, in our heads, I think, other than 2018, last year it was about 10 years since we kind of had any success. And then once we kind of got a taste for it, we got past Dublin, we got through Leinster and then into an All-Ireland final. It was all a bit surreal, but afterwards, obviously there was heartbreak, but like the fact that we got to that point, I feel like there was such a driving factor, even though it took a while to kind of get over it and to kind of get moving again. But there was definitely no issue with desire. I think everyone was gunning for it once we kind of drew a line in the sand and started going after it again.
Yeah, mentioned Dash already, like some of the players that you have that have got that inter-county experience but are 100% driven towards your club now. We had Shane Horn on the programme last year, and he was talking about that he was saying that maybe in some ways it had benefited the likes of Craig and Rory to be able to focus 100% on Kilmacud. That has to be a huge boost for the club as well, to the guys with all of their focus on making sure the Kilmacud are at their absolute best here.
Yes, because it's the same with any team really. If you have the same players playing all the time, you build that chemistry within the team. If you have players that are coming back and forth and then jumping in and out of a team, it kind of takes away from that. But so the more you play with people, the more you get used to their position, you get used to their movements, and obviously you build chemistry. So to have them around, to have their knowledge and stuff as well is huge.
Did it take long to build the chemistry with Shane Walsh then?
No, didn't take long at all.
He's a remarkable talent. I mean, people can debate all around his transfer and whatever else as much as they want, but even at this kind of, I would say, early stages of his Kilmacud Crokes career, he has come up trumps for you. I think back to even the kicking of points in the Leinster final, he was there to just keep the scoreboard ticking over throughout the game for you.
Yeah, look, there was never any question about the talent that he'd bring to the team. He's a fantastic footballer, but as you're saying, how long was it to build chemistry? He came in and started playing with us the moment that all of that kind of was settled. But the big thing, credit I have to give him, was the stuff that he does off the pitch. So, he's bought into our culture on the pitch. He's completely bought into our culture off the pitch. He's come to us with to hurling games, to senior 2 games, to the ladies football. If there's an event on, or even a breakfast or a lunch, he's there for it. So the fact that he joined our culture and kind of slided his way in so gracefully, it's a huge credit to him.
And Andrew, do you feel that you have been tested yet this year? I know the Dublin Championship, it's very competitive, and obviously then you have Leinster, but is this a step up in quality, do you think?
I think every single game is a step up, and every game has its own challenges. And once you get out of it, Dublin's very hard to get out of in itself, And once you get to Leinster, you're only playing county champions, and then once you get out of, once we got out of Leinster, you're only playing provincial champions. So it's a step up for every single game, and then you have the added pressure that comes with getting further and further. So, especially with O'Rahilly's, like they're a very strong team. It's going to be a really difficult challenge. It's going to be. I feel like it's going to be a very open game, especially in Croke Park, where it's a big wide pitch and it'll suit both of our playing styles. So I think it'll be a very good game though.
I was listening back to an interview with the Kerins O'Rahilly manager, William Harmon, and he was saying that there was no Home Alone on the TV this year. It was just all Kilmacud over the Christmas. So obviously, it's easy now to be able to watch teams back. What do you know, I suppose, about Kerins O'Rahilly, or where do you think their biggest threats are?
Well, I won't give too much away, but I think their biggest strength is definitely the size of their team. They're very big players. They're very good fielders. They're a strong physical team. They definitely have some danger men that if we're not careful, they could really expose us. So, I think that side of them is that they're a very big, strong team, and I think that's definitely one of their strongest attributes. But that among many other things. So that's what we'll put a lot of focus into that.
Can I ask you about the culture of the club? You mentioned there a while ago about when Shane was integrating in and he was going along to watch hurling games. And look, your hurlers had a great season this year too, and the ladies footballers along the way. Can you tell us a bit about the culture of Kilmacud Crokes and what you've got around Stillorgan there at the moment?
Well, at the moment, it's been purple and gold flags for a good long time around the area. I think the ladies have had success this year, which has been amazing. The hurlers had success in Dublin and they just came up short of Leinster, which was heartbreak. And I know our Camogie team as well, they were unfortunate this year, but if you look at what they've done in the last 5-6 years, it's been amazing. So I think really there's such a great buzz around the club for everyone, because it got to the stage where like everyone was going to each other's games. There was so much going on. There was so much stuff with the youth where we'd be going down to their training sessions and stuff like that. So there really is a lovely kind of feel to the club at the moment. And like obviously, of course, there are a lot of events on over Christmas, but we were unfortunately unable to go to them. But yeah, there's just a really nice buzz around and a really good atmosphere around the whole of Stillorgan. There has been for the last while.
It takes a lot of buy-in for that to happen, because a lot of people point out the amount of playing numbers that you've got at your club currently, but to kind of create that atmosphere around the club, that takes a lot of work from those behind the scenes who I'm sure are crucial to the success you've had in recent seasons too.
Oh, 100%. Like the amount of effort that's put in, even for the youth, like we wouldn't be able to facilitate that many numbers if we didn't have the parents or the volunteers coming in, even the backroom staff in Kilmacud, the amount of work that they put in. But also it's like when you look at the amount of people that have pushed people to play in Kilmacud Crokes, and like obviously we have a large number in the club, but I think the biggest factor of that was people pushing people into the club. But as well as that, when you look at when we were younger, there were the success that we had. And when you look at the success that we had, I feel like that was a real kind of like, it would hold on to a lot more people. And I think that's what we're really kind of going after now at the moment as well. Seeing our teams be successful, we're hoping that the youth of our club will see that and see that like they could go after that and they can get that in years to come. And obviously instead of pushing away or going to different sports, but so much goes on in the background, and it's a credit to the people that were involved. You
mentioned Croke Park. Has it been, I don't know, an advantage, or how you would gauge this, the fact that you've been able to play in Croke Park quite a bit recently because of your back-to-back Leinster runs that you've had now, with Leinster semi-finals and finals being played there? I know you'll say that Croke Park as a surface and as a stadium is probably going to suit Kerins O'Rahilly as well, but to be able to play so many games recently in Croke Park, is that a help when you come into a semi-final like this?
Look, it can be. It's like, at the same time, it's such a privilege to play there. It's a lovely pitch, and it's just a great experience in itself. And to have experience there, look, it's great to have. But I think at the end of the day, like it's just like any other pitch. Obviously, the conditions may be a lot better, but it's not going to be too much different to any other pitch, any other stadium anyway.
And you mentioned Christmas, and I'm sure it was probably a lot different. Kerins O'Rahilly were saying that they had a challenge game on Stephen's Day, so that's wildly different from most Christmases, to wake up the next day after Christmas morning and to be going out playing games. What was it like for you? What preparation have you been able to get in?
We haven't broken any kind of we haven't broken any days in our schedule, be it whatever was on at those times was fine. We still stuck to our normal routine. If it landed on Stephen's Day and it landed on other days where you think we wouldn't be training, but as in, look, we had it was 5 weeks from our last game to the throw-in of this game, and like it was great to have those extra 3 weeks, because games are usually 2 weeks apart, and it's all very hectic because you play the game, you kind of bring it back down, bring the pace up again, and it's all a bit of a sprint when you're playing 2 weeks at a time. So when we're gifted those extra 3 weeks, we're like you're going to utilize that time, and we definitely did. And then obviously it went back into our 2 week schedule then, and here we are, kind of toning it down now a little bit, and then obviously into the sprint that is the semi-final on Sunday.
Yeah, and it also, I suppose, gives players that have a few niggles or that time to hopefully get back. And I suppose the big name is Paul Mannion. Is he back training?
Yeah, he's back on the pitch. He's back running. Whether he'll be available for selection on Sunday, I don't know. He may not be there just yet, but it's great to see him back out there. It feels like no time at all since the Coola game. But we're all delighted to see him back moving well.
It's been like, it was harsh for him to pick up the injuries both times when the club were going really well in the club championship. I think even neutrals would like to see him on the pitch involved this weekend, or if you were to get to an All-Ireland final. But in a way, not having Paul, I guess you all had to step up your own game individually a little bit more to be without your star forward for two crucial runs, really.
Yeah, look, we'd all love to see him back. I think last year when he got injured for the Leinster final, that was a big test, because he was such an important part of our game plan, playing out around the centre of the pitch. But it was a credit to a lot of people on the team that for that Leinster final, the All-Ireland semi-final, even for the final, like a lot of people, really stepped up. We kind of didn't, like, sometimes when he'd be on the ball, you'd let him do his thing and hope he comes out with some magic. But without that, we have to force ourselves to really everyone to up our game individually.
Well, look, we'll see if we see a bit of him this weekend when you play against Kerrin O'Rahilly's at Croke Park. Andrew, thanks a million for being good with your time, and the best of luck on Sunday afternoon.
Right, thank you.
It's Mount Rotten ring asking, really, when you think about it, these two semi-finals on Sunday. And in a way, look, we talked about the hurling, and it was nice in many ways for the hurling teams to know where they were and if they had a final, but they're going to have to bridge a much longer gap, while whatever teams win this weekend, I've got a little bit of momentum coming into the finals in a few weeks' time.
That's it, yeah. And I think when you're going from a semi-final to a final, you'd probably rather that. You don't want too much time in between, because, you can lose that momentum a small bit. It was nice, I'd say, for some of the players now to get a little bit of rest time over Christmas, if you do have injuries or anything like that, and give yourself the best chance possible, because this is massive opportunities for these clubs. All-Ireland semi-finals and finals, they don't come around very often. So, I suppose that gave players a chance to get themselves back. So it's good in that way. But yeah, I think after the semi-final, to have that shorter period would probably be better to bring the momentum into the final. But yeah, it's going to be two cracking games. And it's great to hear Andrew just speak about the club and how it is such a big club. Like, Will, that was such a good point. It's a massive club and they've huge amount of players to pick from. But still, to hear that they're a close club and they go out to each other's games, like, that is so hard to do. Like, smaller clubs can do that a little bit easier because you know everybody. But it seems like they actually have that close bond within Kilmacud. And yeah, that's a very difficult thing to do. So yeah, a great club. And I think it's going to be fascinating now at the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that is, again, one of the real romances of the club championship. You can have small village teams go up against effectively a suburban town when you consider Stillorgan and the population around their immediate area, and yet it's down to the 15 or 20 players that are going to take the pitch during the day that's going to decide who comes through. So really looking forward to them. As you say, you're going to Fossa this weekend for Sash, and you're going to the semi-finals on the Sunday afternoon as well, are you?
Yes, I am. Yeah, so myself and Mossy Quinn are going to be at the two semi-finals on Sunday, and then I'm going to be on my own for Fossa and Castletown. But really looking forward to that. I haven't got to any really junior games yet, other than in Meath, but I haven't seen any outside the county. So yeah, looking forward to it now.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good afternoon at Portlaoise on Saturday as well. Just a reminder of the fixtures then coming up this weekend once again, starting with the games which are on Saturday. You've got that game between Castletown and Fossa. Then you've got Clifton up against Stewartstown. They are the two Junior Football Championship semi-finals. And then we've got the Intermediate Football Championship semi-finals. Federate of Wexford up against Rathmore of Galway. And then we've got Dunmore against Galbally there. The game's on Saturday. And then on Sunday it is a double header at Croke Park. The first game is Kilmacud Crokes up against Kerins O'Rahilly's. And that will be the first game of two, with Glen against Moycullen, two first-time provincial champions, Glen of Derry up against Moycullen of Galway. So all that to look forward to. Ash, have yourself a good weekend. I think it's going to be some really good action.
Yeah, you too, Will. I'll see you next week.
You too, and thank you for joining us on the Club Championship Show. It is brought to you by AIB. If you've missed the show, you can watch it back on Off the Ball's YouTube or Twitter, or you can catch us, of course, in the podcast section in OTB GA. Speak to you next Wednesday.
The Club Championship Show on OTB, in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. #TheToughest.